Alright, my name is Harrison McLean, and I'm going to be doing a overview of my NFL football database project for CPSC 321 database management systems. First off, we have the just a simple overview of kind of the theme of my database. What I decided to choose is NFL statistics. I'm a big NFL fan, and I thought this would be very interesting to look at. So some of the statistics I'm tracking on my database are player stats, coach stats, as well as team statistics. And I have the statistics are there's game statistics, there's season statistics, and there's also career statistics. And then the overall purpose for this database is to manage and analyze statistics for people such as fans, researchers, and even analysts. Next, we'll be looking at an overview of the use cases for my database. So the first use case is player stat management. As I previously mentioned, there are statistics from each game, statistics from the season, or multiple different seasons, and as well as statistics for that player's entire career. And it's the same with coaches, although with coaches I just did the overall career of the coach. We can also look at the team performance analysis based on separate games or the team's overall standings in the actual season and how their stats fared. And we can also look at career tracking. As I previously mentioned, there are stats from the player's entire career and the coach's entire career, so we can kind of gauge overall their success throughout their time in the NFL. Here I'm going to flip over to my database design. I just wanted to show it on the actual Lucid chart, which I made it on because it's quite a large design and it's a bit complicated. But here off in the middle, kind of where everything is rooted to, is the teams. Obviously that makes sense. Here we have, coming from the team's career, the team's overall season, and their season statistics. We have the players on each team, the players' career statistics, as well as their season statistics. And then we have, obviously, teams also have coaches, and the coaches have a career as well. And coming off teams playing games, and games have overall statistics as well as more specific statistics for each team with, how each player performed in that game, and then team or game team statistics would rather be how the overall team performed and kind of all their stats combined. So getting back to the slideshow here. So the way I populated my data is initially I was planning to insert real data into the database, and I began by inserting real coaches' names, real player names. But when I started inserting the data, I realized how just tedious it was, and it was taking a lot of time to insert that data. So I decided to prompt ChatGPT to give me synthetic data. So some of the more interesting queries I have are these three right here. This first one on the left is a query to retrieve player stats based on their entire career. Player stats as in like their rushing totals for their entire career, their passing totals, or receiving totals. And I thought this was a more interesting query because it used a left join. This is something we covered in class, and that was kind of near the end of class and on a bit more complicated side. The second query here that we're looking at is the team ranking query that I made. This one right here in the middle. So this is one of the, or I forgot to mention, the first query is a dynamic query, so it'll prompt the user. We'll look at this later by actually looking at the database itself, but it'll prompt the user to say like, for the second query. So for the team's overall career, so like the whole time they've been in the league, we're going to rank, or it asks you how you would like to rank these teams. For example, based on how many Super Bowls they have, based on their total win-loss record. How you can even do it by how many wins they had. Then this third, and this was interesting because I used dense rank, which was also kind of one of the window functions that we went over in the later half of the semester, and seemed to be a bit more complicated. And then this is probably the most complicated query I have. It's also a dynamic query which uses a with CTE type query to create a table of the average player statistics, and then from that table you basically what it's doing is choosing all the players who are above the average statistic for like passing or receiving, and this is also another dynamic part of the database, or part of a dynamic query where you can choose if you want to look at receiving yards, passing yards, or rushing yards, and it'll return whichever players are above the league average for all the games that have been played. Next, we're going to take a look at the actual database in how it actually works. So here, first of all, we have the menu, and I can select option 1, which is update player statistics. So it'll prompt you, ask for a name. Everybody knows Patrick Mahomes. Let's select him. So you enter Patrick Mahomes' name, and it says which of these stats would you like to update. He's a quarterback, so let's go with passing stats. And let's give him this. This is also, I forgot to mention, this is for career passing stats. So let's give him 20,000. Okay, go over to the database. We can see that Mahomes has the ID of 105, and his passing yards have been changed to 20,000. Alright, if we head back to the menu, the next option we can go over is coaching, or update coaching statistics. So let's go Kyle Shanahan, my favorite team's coach, and he's won 0 Super Bowls, but let's say, and it gives you the options, what do you want to update. Let's update his Super Bowl wins, and let's say he wins those 2 Super Bowls that he lost, and then we'll go over back to the data. Shanahan has the ID of 203, and we can see that 203 now has 2 Super Bowl wins, which was 0 before. The next is update season statistics, so it's the same type of thing. You can update the team's season statistics. So here's what I was talking about with the player career yardage. Let's say we want to look at all the players that are in the database, their passing yards. And here we have that result. So Brady, it's in descending, so from the highest to the lowest, and we have Brady at the top. It goes Patrick Mahomes and Purdy. Let's say we want to rank teams based off what. Here we would say, let's rank teams based off their Super Bowl wins. And here we can see Green Bay has 7 Super Bowl wins, so they'd be ranked 1. Pittsburgh and San Francisco are tied for 2 at 6 Super Bowl wins, and so on. And then we can go to option 6, find all players who are above average season stats. So let's see who's above the rushing average for this season. And it's Derrick Henry. He's got 470 total yards on the season, and the average for the season is 368. And then these are just some more simple queries that I added, where you can see the single game leading passer. So it gives the game ID, the date, and how many passing yards he had in that game. And then I have a few others like that as well. But that's basically what my database does. And if the challenges I had were making some of the dynamic queries, uh, initially my queries weren't dynamic, so the user didn't really have an option. If they didn't couldn't like enter a player's name to see or change that specific player's statistics, or they didn't really have options when it came to querying. And they just had I just had like a bunch of different menu options, but I decided there was too many menu options, and I would just consolidate it, so I had to make dynamic queries. Another difficult part about this project was inputting data. Like I said before, initially I had been inputting the data by hand, and that was just very time consuming. So I made that easier by just using ChatGPT to create data for me. And then also creating more, something I would do in the future is just a future plan is create more dynamic queries. I feel like I have some good uh, interesting queries, but it isn't really fully what I would like to have for a database like this. There's a lot more I could explore query wise, just making it a lot more interesting. And then the final future plan I would have for this is make a GUI. As we saw, it's just a terminal based program. It's not very nice to look at, and a GUI would offer the user just a bit more imagery. Maybe it could pull up an image of the player or the team that's being queried, and it would just be a lot more visually appealing to have a GUI alongside this. But yeah, thank you for listening to my overall project, and I hope you liked it. Thank you.